The Hammers, of course, travelled to Leicester this evening with Ruud van Nistelrooy taking charge of his first game at the King Power. And he's been speaking to the media ahead of that match as Leicester manager and admitted that his side have a big job to do to stay in the division.
I had a meeting with the players, and it was the first thing to address the situation that we're in and the challenge that we're facing and what's necessary to get out of that. Obviously, with the run of results over the last weeks and the Brentford game, it's up to reacting and clarity about how we're going to do things.
How big a job is that he's got there? It must be a benefit, if you can use that word, that if you are a side that's fighting for their life down there, you're not alone. I think it's a group of 5. I think West Ham should be fine, and then you've got Bournemouth above them, then, of course, Villa and Newcastle. I think it's Everton, Leicester, Palace, Wolves, Ipswich, Southampton. I think it's 6 teams. So he's one of those 6, right?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's tough. And again, this season, you might survive, and I know we've said it before, but you might survive because there are 3 worse teams than you. So that's not necessarily, you're going to be delighted about it, but it's not because you've been good enough or that you've been better than the rest. It's just that teams have been worse than you have. Mm-hmm. I still look at some of the teams down there, and I look at Palace with the players they've got and think they should be okay, right? Wolves, we know what they can do.
How are they in there?
We've seen them get to Fulham and win, and then at the weekend they kind of cause their own problems. You almost feel with Everton, Sean Dyche will find a way. Ipswich, I think they'll be fine.
No, you have to be honest with Ipswich.
It's going to be tough. Like, if I'm being honest, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they've won 1 game all season. They should have more points on the board than they've got because 2-0 up against Brentford. You've got to find a way somehow to kind of see it out.
Not lose.
Yeah. They've made mistakes in certain games as well. But, I mean, I would have never envisaged the way that this Premier League finished last season and how good Crystal Palace were. I would have never thought they'd be where they are currently now, which is 17th. I know they've lost a couple of players in Anderson and Elise, but it simply can't just be that. Do you know what I mean? When they signed Nketiah, I thought, okay, another option. They've got Mateta, they've got Ismail Assar, really good player. Yeah. Adam Wharton in the middle of the park, although they talked about his injury. They managed to keep hold of Mark Gahey. I did think, do you know what?
Yeah, so did I, actually. Now you put all those names together.
Yeah, I did think. I didn't think they would finish in top 10 or something, but I just thought they'd be decent this year. But the fact that they've absolutely struggled like crazy this year, like, it's been a real surprise for me.
Let me ask you about West Ham, because that's one of the teams that I said aren't in that relegation scrap. They're on 15 points. The bottom 3 start with Wolves in 18th, then Ipswich, then Southampton. Wolves are 9th. So the gap between West Ham and the bottom 3 is 6 points. Are West Ham, if they don't win tonight in a relegation scrap, or even now?
No, I don't think that. Do you know why I don't? I mean, they got absolutely walloped at the weekend, but that will happen. That can happen.
But we've seen them get walloped before Chelsea and ripped them apart, right?
Yeah,
Man United should have ripped them apart, just couldn't finish. So we've seen it quite a few times already.
But we've also seen them get results when they go. Like, the one result this season that they got, and I thought they had no chance of getting, was the Newcastle result.
Yeah.
How they got to St James's Park and win 2-0, I was like, what a result that is, by the way. So I think they've got that in them. And they're another side as well, West Ham. When you look at the players that they've got, Antonio, focal point, I think Fulcrew's close to coming back from injuries, or he might have even been back on the bench, but I think he will play a big part for West Ham moving forward. I think, he's I don't know how long he's going to be out, but Fulcrew's a good one. They've got that Soler, who I'm a big fan of, good player. Bowen, Somerville, Paquetá. Do you know what I mean? They've got Kudus to come back. They've signed Kilman, Wan-Bissaka. That squad there, again, players I've mentioned.
And he's got goals as well. I think he's got 2 this season, hasn't he, Wan-Bissaka?
Exactly. The team I mentioned there, I'm like, how are you struggling as well? So I think with West Ham, regardless with the manager, and I know they're not happy with what's going on down there, they will be okay because they've got good players. And they've got players also that, even if they're not playing well, could pull them out the fire with a bit of magic.
Let's talk about the 2 games in more detail. Ipswich against Palace is the earlier of the 2, 7:30. That one kicks off. Meaning, of course, in about 20 minutes' time, we'll have team news for you. Ipswich at home, they're at Portman Road. As you touched on it earlier, 13 games and 1 win, nowhere near good enough. Listen, it's always a struggle when a side who don't spend loads of cash come up from the Championship. And they did it in style, let's not forget. Two promotions on the bounce is something you never really talk about in football. It doesn't really happen that often. But the jump between Championship and Premier League has been absolutely massive. Has it been too big for them, do you think, this time around?
It's funny, because when you said about obviously doing it a different way, spending a lot of money, Ipswich did spend a lot of money and did bring in a lot of players.
I know, but they didn't bring in established Premier League players.
No, but they signed players that I thought on paper looked I think it was over £100 million. They just spent something like around £100 million. I mean, they bought in.
But here's my question. Sorry, is that we've seen it before? Is that enough when you're not buying established, experienced Premier League players for a team to survive in the Premier League?
Well, I think it is, because we've seen teams buy experienced Premier League players and it not work, because the motive for these experienced Premier League players could be what? My last chance at a big contract. So I'm not really going there because I care about the project. Do you know what I mean? Or it could be journeyman they're sending, but they've made Amari Hutchinson permanent. Very good. We saw how good he is. They brought in Jacob Greaves, who I think will, regardless of what happens to Ipswich, at some point he's going to go to the next level. Liam Delap was spoken about.
He's not at that level now. This is my point.
No, but he's good. I think he's good enough.
He is good,
but he's been out for a while.
Step up from Championship to
Delap
Premier League.
Good enough?
Yes.
But you wouldn't have said that before.
No, I wouldn't have said that before.
So I think there's a few, and they went with experience. Calvin Phillips.
I know, but we've seen him struggle in the Premier League before.
He's also an international, experienced international.
I know, but you understand what I'm saying, right?
This is my point. You're saying about why they're not signed experienced internationals or experienced players
in the Premier League. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think they've got enough, and I've seen enough this season from Ipswich to think that they'll give themselves a chance. Now, that might not be enough, but I've certainly not looked at them at the start of this season and thought to myself, oh my goodness, we've got absolutely no chance to stand up here. There's been moments, like for instance, they should have beaten Manchester United at home. The chances they had, they should have beat Manchester United.
Yep.
We saw them first half against Liverpool, brilliant, ran out of gas, new to the league. We saw them got lucky against Southampton. I'll give you that.
Very
lucky about Southampton. We let Leicester score 90 plus, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there's been points that they've left on the table.
Okay. Well, it's Ipswich against Palace tonight. I said if you're going to the game or you want to talk about it, you can. 03717223344. That one starts, as I said, 7:30. We'll have team news for you in about 10 minutes' time. But let's speak to Del, who's a Leicester fan. Hi, Del.
How you doing, guys? You all right?
I'm good, man. I can hear you're in your car. Are you on your way to the game?
Yeah, I'm on the way to the game with my lad. So we're getting ready for a cold one tonight.
All right. Well, and how are you feeling ahead of the game tonight?
Oh, really excited. Really excited. I think Ruud is a real good. It's a real good punt on Ruud, really. I mean, last season we had Enzo, and nobody really ever heard of Enzo, and he created a bit of an identity for our side. I think Ruud's got an opportunity now to really show what he's capable of, and I'm really hoping he gets a bit of drive and determination out of the squad, which we haven't seen for the last 3 or 4 games.
Del, what are you expecting from Ruud van Nistelrooy tactically? Because we've seen Steve Cooper, you guys weren't happy with him in the football that he played. I mean, Ruud hasn't got that much experience, but what are you hoping that he shows you and what he brings?
Well, so it's a bit of passion, really. I mean, I think that's what we've been missing a lot of. I mean, against Brentford at the weekend, it's just the players look clueless. I mean, at the beginning of the season, the first couple of games, I thought, we didn't really get the wins, but we got a draw against Tottenham. And during that game, actually the second half against Tottenham, the first game of the season, the players looked like they really wanted to get something out of it. So I think there's a couple of things, really. I mean, the defence, we need to sort out the defence. And he said in the press conference yesterday that he's going to, he wants to have a real solid defensive line. And work off the work that Enzo started last season. But also I want to see a bit of, Vardy. Vardy's up front. He's got the capability of banging in goals, but there's no service into him. So I wanted to see a bit of creativity as well. I think tonight is really good. I mean, I know he's only had a couple of days to prepare. But tonight is really going to be the benchmark for our side against West Ham. If we don't beat West Ham tonight, I'm going to be really nervous for the rest of the season because we've got Brighton on Sunday, so that's not going to be easy at all.
No, thanks for your call, Dale. I mean, every game in the Premier League is difficult. I think earlier on I alluded to the fact that Leicester are in, I don't know how I did it, Ipswich against Palace, but Ipswich Palace is at 7:30. Leicester, of course, take on West Ham. That one at 8:15. Which is the bigger game to call, do you think? Leicester, West Ham, or Ipswich Palace?
I mean, Ipswich Palace. I always feel like Selhurst Park is a tough. It's not Selhurst Park. It's actually Ipswich.
It's Portman Road.
It's a difficult one because, of course, Ipswich need the points. Palace, you just don't know what you're going to get from them.
It's a big game for Lopetegui, isn't it?
It's huge, absolutely huge. I'm not sure that the West Ham fans are completely sold on.
Of course they're not. You know they're not.
But the only bizarre thing about that is that they weren't happy with the football David Moyes played. So why would the board then opt for a guy that plays similar type of football?
I know. And it needs time to find his feet and understand the players, understand the formation.
That was the only thing I weren't sure about.
Big risk.
talkSPORT Drive with Andy Goldstein. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.